Hello and welcome to the Premier Football Podcast. This is Joe's Corner, the time of the week where we take a look at a feature piece. And as it's the 2nd of February, we've of course just wrapped up the transfer window for the winter period, the January transfer window as it's known. And not any massive surprises, I don't think. Maybe one or two here or there. We didn't have like a Fernando Torres and Andy Carroll situation that we had almost 10 years ago at this stage. Yeah, 2011, 9 years ago. But there were some deals. Manchester United and Tottenham were very busy among the bigger clubs, and those are the two that we'll start off with. Bruno Fernandes came into United from Sporting Lisbon for, if the report fee is to be believed, for a fee rising to €80 million, which is about £67.5 million, which is a big investment. But he has been doing very, very well in the Portuguese league. He's arguably been the best player in that league for the last 2 or 3 seasons. He gets bucket loads of goals and assists. The question will just be, will he be able to acclimatise to the Premier League? And let's be honest, Manchester United have been crying out for a player like this. They tried to do it in the summer, couldn't get the deal over the line. They eventually got it just before the window closed. I think the day before deadline day, Thursday. And he made his debut against Wolves on Saturday, a drab 0-0 draw. And he finished the game playing as a number 6, which I don't think he would have expected at the start. I don't think that this is going to be an easy period of adaptation for Bruno Fernandes. For a start, he's going to be cup-tied in the Europa League, so he'll be much more familiar with the Europa League, shall we say, than with the Premier League. So I think he would have been able to hit the ground running a bit better had he been able to play in that competition. In addition, Manchester United don't really play in a style that suits his abilities at the moment. They're very much on the counter-attacking side rather than on the controlling side, and I think that he's a player who would much prefer to be controlling games rather than picking pass. Like he's a good passer of the ball. There's no doubt about that. But I just think that he would suit a team better if they were like a Manchester City or a Liverpool who control games. So we'll have to see how Solskjaer uses him. He's obviously able to play multiple positions. If he started the game against Wolves as a 10 and moved to a 6 at the end of the game, but like I said, I think that it could, this second half of the season could be difficult for him, and we might not see the best of him until next season. The other player they brought in was Ighalo, former Watford striker, Nigerian international, who's come in from Shanghai Shenhua on a 6-month loan deal. I can't remember the price of the loan fee. I don't think it was too much. I think it was about £4 or £5 million. And they're, if reports are to be believed, they're only paying a third of his wages. He's on £300,000 a week in China, and United are going to be paying £100,000. I think he could be a decent signing for them. There's been ridicule, and you might say rightly so. In his last season for Watford, he scored 1 goal in 18 games before being moved off in January. The season before that, he had been very good, scoring, I think, 15 goals in 37 games, which for a newly promoted Watford side was pretty decent. He's also been scoring at a good rate in China as well. And I think that he's not a bad striker. He's experienced. He's 30 years old. He's an international. He was top scorer in the African Cup of Nations. He's a very good athlete. He's big. I think he's 6'6'1". He's strong. He's quick. He's good in the air. He's decent at finishing with his feet. So I think that this could actually be a fairly astute signing. If you think of the forwards that Manchester United have. The Marcus Rashford, although he's out until very late on in the season, you never know, he might miss the rest of the season. But Martial, for example, he's not a player who is very adept at holding up the ball. He's good as a number 9, but you could also make a case that he's equally good, if not better, on the left as a number 11. So I think that certainly if you looked at Manchester United's front 3 against Wolves, it was Mata on the right, Martial through the middle, and James on the left. Signing Ighalo means that you can drop Daniel James, who badly he's a good footballer, but he's been over relied on for a young lad coming from the Championship, and he needs to get a spell out of the team. They could play Ighalo through the middle, Martial on the left, and they could play Greenwood on the right, and that is a far better. Greenwood and Martial can work off Ighalo. Ighalo can do the dirty work and allow these players to do what they're best at. We've seen it before. He's not an Olivier Giroud type per se. He's a lot quicker. He's more agile, but he can be used in that manner and to bring other players into play. And Olivier Giroud, despite his goal scoring record not being great in the last couple of years, he's been a fairly consistent centre forward for Arsenal and for Chelsea. And whenever he plays, he brings out Eden Hazard loved playing with Olivier Giroud. He really, and Alexis Sanchez, debatable at the end if he did, but there are times where you could tell that he enjoyed playing with him, because he was able to run off him, and he allowed Sanchez to play some of his best football and to play in a freer way than if he hadn't been in the team. So I think that Ighalo could actually surprise some people. It's a relatively risk-free signing from United. He's experienced. He should hit the ground running. Like, there shouldn't have to be too much of a settling in period. He's a Manchester United fan as well, so he'll be chomping at the bit to get involved and to do well and to prove a lot of people wrong. I don't think that there's an option to sign him permanently, and I don't think the United would take up would want that. But I think for 6 months it can't be as bad as some people are making it out to be, basically. Spurs next. They have signed Giovanni Lo Celso on a permanent deal from Real Betis. He was obviously on loan. They've signed him for £30 million, and they've just brought in Steven Bergwijn from PSV Eindhoven for £27 million. I haven't been overly impressed with Lo Celso. He does some things well. He's pretty good at running with the ball from midfield. He's a decent technical player. I don't think that he's kind of someone to bring Tottenham to the next level at all. I think that he's very much a Europa League, it's kind of lower tier Champions League player at the very best. And I'm kind of surprised that they took up this option to sign him on a permanent deal, because I don't see him as a Jose Mourinho player. Jose Mourinho typically likes big physical men in his midfield, not more elegant players like Giovanni Lo Celso. Obviously had a spell with PSG, but didn't really do too much, and he was playing for Real Betis, did pretty well. There's every chance of him doing very well for Tottenham. He's relatively young. I think he's about 23, 24. So he could come good. I just think that with Mourinho being the man in charge, that it's a bit of a strange one to activate. I was convinced that he was going to go back to Betis after his loan, because Mourinho didn't seem to fancy him, although he has played him a little bit more recently, and he's starting against Manchester City today. And the second one, Steven Bergwijn from PSV Eindhoven. I don't know too much about him. I don't watch the Dutch league. But reports are that he's a good technical player, which you'd expect. He's quick. He's a tricky winger. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. It's very difficult to predict how players, especially forwards signing from the Dutch league, are going to fare in the Premier League. They tend to have a much easier time in the Netherlands. You have a lot more time on the ball. It's a less aggressive style of play. It's easier to score goals. It's easier to make goals. There are more goals in the Eredivisie than there are in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see whether he hits the ground running, whether he takes time to settle. Like the last few wingers that have signed, Memphis Depay is the last winger that signed for Manchester United from the Dutch league, from PSV Eindhoven actually as well, and he didn't do the business. But that's not saying that Bergwijn won't. It's just he might need a settling in period. So Spurs fans will have to be patient with him. One team who decided against making any transfers, despite having their transfer ban lifted after a successful appeal, is Chelsea. And there's a genuine case to say that they should have been looking to strengthen up top. That there's been an over-reliance on Tammy Abraham. Of course, they have Michy Batshuayi and Olivier Giroud in reserve, but they're not. I was just saying that Giroud has been a good player, and he has been a good player, but he's not really at that level anymore. And I think it's a strange one for them to get the transfer ban lifted and then to opt again. Maybe the targets they really wanted weren't available in January. That's often the case. And I would always say that if you can't get the players that you really want, then don't get anyone at all, or bring in a low risk signing like Ighalo, or like Arsenal's 2 loan deals. Like loan deals in January don't always work out, but they're definitely much lower risk than going and splashing a large amount of money on your 3rd, 4th, or 5th choice player. So unless it's really key, like Chelsea, they have 3 strikers, one of whom has been playing well. He's gone through a bit of a dip in the last couple of games. His scoring rate has dropped off a bit, but at the same time, it's a position that they need more quality in, but it's not a position that they need more depth in immediately. So I guess maybe their dream signing wasn't available right now. West Ham brought in Jared Bowen from Hull City, who's a forward who can play in any of the attacking positions across the front 3. Very highly rated in the Championship. He scored over 20 goals last season, I think 22 in the league, and he's on 16 from 31 games, something like that, so just better than 1 and 2 this season. Or 29, yeah, I think it's just better than 1 and 2 he's averaging at the moment. So in the Championship, as someone who's not a out and out striker, that is very good, very, very, very good. And I don't think that West Ham are funny. There's not an obvious position that they need. I think that they've been poor in many different areas, but they do have good attacking players already. And what this signing could do, as well as bringing in a guy who's in very good form, is that it could get the likes of Manuel Lanzini. I know Snodgrass scored twice the other day, and he has been playing well for them this season. I like him a lot. But like the likes of Lanzini and Felipe Anderson to step up, because they've not been at it this season. And that's what you want. You want competition for places. You need more people to select. Allaire as well. He needs to step up big time if West Ham are going to stay up. They need goals, definitely, because they're not. Yeah, you can understand why they brought him in, because it's difficult to fix a defence mid-season, but you can bring in more goals. The question is, of course, is whether how quickly he can step up from Championship to Premier League. We've seen players come up from the Championship and hit the ground running immediately, and we've seen players take longer or not do it at all. So again, it's just a question of he's a bit of an unknown quantity, isn't he? Certainly in the Premier League, having never played there. And the last player I'd like to mention, again, is going from Chelsea to Aston Villa, is Danny Drinkwater. And Villa are having to cough up £100,000 a week, which I'm quite sure it would make him their highest paid player. And I can't see this one working out for them. I think that this might be a waste of money. I hold my hands up if I'm wrong, but I think that this might be a big waste of money for Aston Villa. And that it would have been better off spent on a striker, or on another centre back, or another centre midfielder. Danny Drinkwater has really had his day. He was good for Leicester when they won the league. Went to Chelsea, never really fit in there. I think last year under Sarri, the only game he played in was a substitute appearance in the Charity Shield all season. It's mad. I know that Sarri was very stuck in his ways in terms of who he was picking, but by the same token, like, you'd expect to get some minutes. And he went to Burnley and he couldn't break into the team. And now he's gone to Aston Villa. And in the first game he played for Villa against Man City, he was shocking. It was very, very brave of Dean Smith to throw him straight into the team against City. At the same time, he is an experienced player and they're paying him a lot of money, so you can kind of understand why they did. But City ran him ragged, and he was at fault, not directly, but for all of the goals. But he kind of had a hand in it, at least half of them that they conceded, just through poor positioning, poor challenges, and a general lacking in confidence. So I think that for Villa, that's a poor investment. and yeah, they could have used that money better in other positions. Guys, thank you very much for watching today. We're going to have a new feature starting next week where we're going to be bringing on fans from different clubs, and having a chat with them and catching up about how they think their teams are doing. So keep an eye out for that one, and we'll see you during the week for sure. Thanks very much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow all the socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Peace. Thanks.